Months of vibe coding and staring at my screen 18 hours a day, I finally got some glasses while I stare at the computer, and man, I didn't know I had it. I think I've had a headache for 3 months and I didn't know it. I'm upset. We're still seeing introducing Cloud Sonnet 4.5. Sounds like. For some reason, you're really bad, but the audio is great otherwise. Oh, that's much better. Well, that's it. Well, here we go. Hey, Red.
My plan is usually what I like to have is a. Oh man, I think that was probably quiet for a while too. Huh? Oh no, because it was playing in the background. Okay. Usually, what I kind of am orienting. Oh, whoa, Taug, what's up, man? Long time no see. You ready to learn some? Oh, bye. Oh, he probably clicked the push notification too. That's how I'm getting these people, man. Yeah, so usually the kind of general loose freeform format that I have in mind for this is I run around all week and like look for cool things and or people, and see if I can grab one of them. But we were cooking this week, so didn't have a lot of running around time to do. But thankfully, the sort of other kind of half, I usually want to have like a prompt slash topic slash thing to kind of go over. And I do believe that the introduction of a certain language model that you might be able to guess is probably the largest news of the week, and then secondarily, how little of it everyone else is getting. So the sort of subtitle, I guess, for this week will be the is anon. We have a software fountain at home. The thought being, if we have this great new fancy model, we are all getting like rate limited to death, and it's very frustrating. But so the question is like, how are people getting around that? Um, are we getting around that, or are we just like taking it? And then when you do hit your limits, like what's your recourse essentially? I have a couple of, so you'll see like that I have a bunch of tabs up here. The first several are related to this in like ways that I try to get around that. Um, but I'm certainly curious if if there's anybody that ends up watching or listening. And in fact, I should keep half an eye on the chat probably. that has other stuff, different stuff, or general thoughts. If anybody ends up in the audience or on the streams or whatever and has thoughts, feel free to drop in chat, jump on stage, whatever. And otherwise, I have a couple of ways that I generally go about that, and then some general thoughts on like the sort of like implications of, hey, it turns out for the software fountain that we all need, we want, as software people, it seems to be that there is kind of one or two places to get that, and all the other ones kind of suck, which seems like a problem to me. So that's, I suppose, the general prompt of what to do when Dario turns off the software fountain again. But I will detour a little over as for like, Al, do you have anything that you are interested in giving us an update on, covering, thinking about, whatever? I'll throw it over to you and see if the floor is yours if you got anything.
Yeah, I'd say with 4.5 Sonnet, the thing that everybody's missing is if you already followed how Claude was going and you were following subagents and you were following the introduction of like planning and then using subagents, 4.5 Sonnet is actually a godsend, but only if you're using Opus in plan mode and you specifically tell it to use Claude-4.5-Sonnet. And if you say that, it seems to work magically. The rest of my experience with Claude 4.5 Sonnet has been just brutal. Because it's as verbose as Sonnet was, but now now it thinks it's smart and it's verbose. It's verbose and smart, and it isn't actually as smart as it thinks it is. It's like a Dunning-Kruger machine. And that seems to be that's most of my takeaway so far, but I'm sure we'll get into it.
Sonnet being a Dunning-Kruger machine is definitely the most apt thing I've heard. I totally agree. I'm interested though, so I swapped over to my Claude code here because I tried this yesterday and it didn't work. So I'm curious if you do model, it's 4-5-sonnet, if I'm not mistaken, yeah?
You have to type Claude in front of it.
Okay.
Claude-4.5-sonnet, yeah.
Claude, whoa. You're giving spoilers, Serena, calm down. Okay. Claude 4-5-sonnet and C.
4.5. 4.5.
4.5.
Claude-4.5-sonnet.
Claude 4.5-sonnet. Because I heard, I was looking on Reddit, and
try just hammering /model and see what happens.
Sure.
It seemed like it would work.
So yeah, so I put this in, and the secret here is, hey Claude, are you awake, buddy? Let's see. Yeah, see? So the secret was on Reddit. Somebody was like, hey, if you set it to this, it'll work. I just downgraded from the max plan to the pro plan because I wanted to give GPT-5 Codex kind of like the reins for this week, to see if how far I could push that, and then try out Sam's new toys like the Pulse thing and all that other kind of like stuff. GPT-5 Pro as well is kind of definitely of interest to me. I've heard, at least for my workflow, I definitely spend some of it like in the browser doing prep work or research or whatever, and I'm told that like if the Dunning-Kruger machines are Dunning-Krugering themselves to death, that sometimes if you just dump the whole thing into GPT-5 Pro and let it like think for like half an hour, then sometimes it'll just get you out of whatever pit you've fallen into. So this is off of a Pro plan, and you will notice that like we have the API error that says the model identifier is invalid there, but now the provided model identifier is invalid in a different, presumably a different kind of API error. Which I thought was kind of interesting, and I'm curious, Al. So what I'm wondering is that an issue with my plan, or is the trick you need to call it via subagents so that it's Claude calling the other model, and then your API call isn't the user making that call, so the filter gets dodged. So my question for you, Al, being.
I just tested it with Claude-Sonnet-4.5, 4-5. That seems to work for me. So it might
Okay.
be your plan too.
Gotcha.
I think the thing with getting into use subagents is more like if you don't get Claude Opus to drive Claude 4-5 Sonnet, you're not actually using it fully. And if you're waiting and like trying to actually figure out how to use like 4 or 5 yourself, it's not really designed for that. It's designed to follow plans that are written by Opus.
Yeah, I would definitely concur on that. It is, and I think subagents are a great way to do that. There's another I guess on the topic of like, okay, Dario turned off the software fountain again. What do we do? One of my favorite things. I wonder if I have an example of it. I might. Let me do. Can I do agent?
On that note, while you're pulling that up, the thing that everybody keeps talking about with this is the Opus limit has gone down a lot,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And that is, I think, people misunderstanding how you're supposed to use 4.5, and I think they're actually forcing the Opus limits down so that we use the new Sonnet. Probably because they were wasting a lot of money on GPUs. That seems like the main takeaway.
Yeah, I think the 4.5 or Sonnet, historically is like he needs a planner, otherwise he's gonna make me a bunch of backward compatibility wrappers that I don't need and don't want in my code base, among other lovely little security hardenings that are way off course, RLS in a database that doesn't need any, etc., etc. Um, but so yeah, I think that the slash plan mode is probably the optimal way to be using 4.5, and I suspect that that is like super powerful because I kind of saw you like ripping with it last night. Um,
Oh yeah, I pushed like 6 features in the last 24 hours.
yeah, yeah, no, it's kind of crazy. So it's like, yes, I want, that kind of acceleration is something that is an extremely valuable thing, but the um, at some point, even if you're pushing it to the limit, like you will run out of quota on Anthropic. Like he's gonna cut you off. So I'm like, where my head is at is like, how do you maximize the efficiency of any token that you're asking Sonnet 4.5 or Opus for, and then when inevitably you do run out post, efficiency maxing, like where do you go from there? So there's a few different options. One of the ways, I guess I don't have them in my globals, but I think I have it in a couple of projects. I just have to dig around. But one of the ways that I like to kind of get around the token sort of restriction, if you will, is having subagents that only have permissions to run one bash command, and that command is something like codex or amp, so that I can have my Claude Opus do the most of the planning, and then I can have Sonnet driving through the plan, and then if I'm noticing context starting to get filled up, or I have something where I'm like, okay, I think a dumber model can handle this, an instruction like, hey, use the subagent GPT-5 to go do this part of the thing or research this other thing, so I can kind of like save the super valuable tokens for the like fairly valuable work, is kind of one of my favorite approaches, at least, to that.
Yeah, I'm pretty attached to that notion. One of the things I think which you've also impressed on me is that it's really, really important to get Claude Opus to write good prompts for Claude Sonnet, and getting a good structured plan in place makes that pretty easy. And then your subagents are always running specifically when they need to with the right context, which when subagents don't have the right context, it's kind of like throwing dynamite into your code base because things get moved around, but you're not really sure where they went or what the little like pieces left over sitting around are, and that can be an absolute nightmare. It's just like that's how you waste 2 days.
Right.
You can go from pushing 3 features to spending 2 days debugging a PR in like less than 30 seconds if you do the wrong thing, which is crazy.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
think.
Formula One racing or something like that, right? Like if you miss the corner, you're dead, and that's just it. And then
Yeah,
you have to
yeah.
give up for a couple.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think the like dynamite analogy, or it's like the goal is to take the thing that is made of dynamite and make it into a scalpel, so that you can actually get it pointed at the right thing and only the right thing, which is subagents can be good for, unless they are like scoped incorrectly, and then they will just blow everything up. Especially because you don't get a lot of good feedback about what those subagents are doing. It can be kind of risky business. Do you? I'm curious. Do you have Opus manually write the plan, or do you use the plan mode feature at all? Curious.
I don't use plan mode. I like to be part of the planning process, so that's usually the most engaged part of my day. And I probably every like hour or so, I'm spending probably 15 minutes of serious planning time where I'm talking to the agent continuously and making small tweaks, and then ship it off for 45 minutes. I try to keep the iteration time down to an hour though. If the iteration time goes over an hour, then you have a really high variance in the output, and sometimes it's really good, and you just like let it run, and it's kind of like that's like the lazy option, I guess. And then if I'm really watching it like a hawk, I can get way more output. So like getting several features done in a day usually means having at least 3 or 4 of those cycles, because you usually have like one cycle per feature, and then you have one major cycle to do integrations testing and make sure everything works before you do like a PR merge. And I think that's actually the hardest part. And if you have all the documentation in place and you get all these markdown files in advance, like that's kind of where the planning mode fails, because it doesn't make the markdown files. It just does the plan and then it hands it off. Um, and you can have it make a markdown file, but that's not how it's designed to work or how it's thinking. I think planning mode really works well. I almost what I would imagine doing that I think would work really well is having planning mode running in a subagent. Like a subagent that does planning would be fantastic, but the getting the main agent that you're talking to do planning for you is complicated.
Yeah, that's generally how I haven't found plan mode to be super valuable either. But yeah, like that pattern I think is a lot better for me. Where if I need somebody to make me like a smart, because like the you can make a plan and then see the default kind of out of the box way to do that with Claude Code being like reasonably effective. It's like a decent kind of out of the box utility, but especially when you're generating a lot of code with these things, you kind of need to adapt your plan a lot as you go, because they're gonna run off some other direction, and either you can like wrangle them back by having them plan their way there, or kind of be able to adapt your plan to what they're doing. And yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I think that's my key to shill tribe, because that's kind of the whole point of I think what we've been doing with the log stuff. The big build this is getting all of my Claude Code logs and all of your Codex logs into a common database, which I think is fantastic. And then running insights over that, which I think is going to allow us to start iterating on this lifecycle process a lot faster, because fairly soon we'll know which kinds of prompts are leading to iteration loops. And I think it's actually like a pretty finite space, which is cool.
yeah.
So there's a map that's established, and then the non-deterministic system in a finite space with correct guardrails can actually perform. But it's until you have that like I'd call it like tool use knowledge. It's like Cloud Code had to learn to use tools, and I think also we like need to develop our common standards of how to use this tool properly. There's a great story in Canada. The Canadian Engineering Guild has a engineering ring that they give out to people. They don't give it out. You have to swear an oath, and you wear it on your pinky finger of your dominant hand, so that when you sign paperwork, it rings against the table. And the point is to remind people that at one point they started building these big suspension bridges out of steel, and there was this like mob boss who managed to get a bunch of low-grade steel into the pipe. Um, and that led to this whole thing where like the bridge collapsed and hundreds of people actually were injured. I think actually like a couple dozen of people died like that day, and it was like a really bad engineering incident that was purely based on fraud. Um, and it seems to be kind of where this stuff goes, is like making sure that you have good materials to work with is really important. And I think at this point we don't really know how to use this new material, like this medium that we have. Um, and it's very important that people start to understand how to use it before they critique the system. Because like a lot of people tell me that they're getting really slop output, and I think that's like usually user error, right?
Well, yeah, I think you kind of touch on the critical piece there, where it's like, how tight is the iteration to validation loop, right? Where it's like, if I can make a solid plan and then I have something that gives it a definite endpoint and make sure that the plan actually went to plan. If you can, the more you can reduce the time between that start point at the and that endpoint, then I think the better results you get, largely because that middle point is all like slop generating, slot machines. And like that's sort of what they are. But the trick is like as they get smarter, you can get away with getting that loop kind of larger and larger. But the best way to do it is to just find a workflow that gets you down to the tightest loop you can and just use that over and over and sort of like learn how the tool fits into that best, which I think is also a very good way to save context, mostly because the if you have that loop down to being very tight and then you have like definitive things on either end, either you can use very expensive tokens on both, but eventually like once you get, if the thing you're getting good at is constructing and then piloting down those loops, the thought there is that eventually you'll develop this kind of intuition of how these plans and validations are getting made, and then you'll know when you can afford to like save, rather than Opus, go over to GPT-5 or if this one is fine to just offload to a sub agent or an open source model or what have you.
Yeah, it's kind of like Agile 2.0, right?
A little bit, yeah.
When it first came out, it was like this huge Herculean task to coordinate all of the code bases, right? Because back then, like, imagine like writing in assembly in like the early 2000s, and that when you actually really picture how complicated that is, it's like the platform that you are building on is not stable, right? So you're building on a broken or like on a wobbly foundation, and any move could actually topple the entire thing and crash it. So like Stack Overflow, aptly named, is because like that that actually used to happen, right?
That was pretty much the reason. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those don't really happen anymore, and that's because people figured out how to make the foundation stable, and then there's people like Linus Torvald brags about at Linux being able to look up file paths and look up index pointers in the cache memory like half a second or like 50% faster, right? Mm-hmm. And they work on those kinds of optimizations and adaptations at like the operating system level, so that when we go and hammer away on our bash command line, or when Claude does it, then it actually works, And I think the thing that's happening now is very similar to that. There's going to be a massive wave of optimizations and all these like layers of systems around it before it actually starts to work. Is Claude Sonnet playing Settlers of Catan? Is that what you're showing on the screen right now?
Yeah, actually.
Oh my God.
So I clicked on from that release article. The thing that was very interesting to me was let's see. We've added a new context editing feature and memory tool, which is gonna be a great way to help with token costs. In case anybody was not aware, if Claude's context window is filling up, that means he is very, very likely getting some of the things that probably should be cached sent to him again. And then, in terms of non-cached LLM calls, how they usually work is they have to get the entire conversation every time you say anything over again. So the best way to burn through your context is to have a long conversation and just say hi, because then you had to send the entire conversation all over again. So context management being an important skill and an important set of tools to be able to apply to things, it seems that they have decided to give us some additional ones, which supposedly Claude can use to help him play Settlers of Catan.
This is disgusting to me, because I think Settlers is probably my one last skill that I was holding on to. Like, I will always be able to build the longest road, and if I can't always build the longest road, and the agents can beat me at that too, then like, I don't know. This happened in chess a while ago. There's this really annoying thing where like I used to be good at chess in like 2010. Like I was like very, very good at chess. And I have friends that went on to be grandmasters, and like they're also very skilled. I stopped playing for a long time because I went to engineering school and did a bunch of other stuff. And then, the thing with chess is now that there are computers that are really good at chess and everybody can play against those computers, everybody's gotten a lot better at chess. So I went back on chess.com on my old profile, and my elo just got crushed, Mm-hmm. And so I went from having a good elo to having like a very mediocre elo. And the interesting thing about this is if you rank it with elo, which is like, it's player relative ranking. So it depends on where you stack with the rest of the people. If you rank it on that, then it actually really matters if you've been practicing against the machine. And now I use chess.com all the time, and it has recommendations on how I should actually play chess better. So I lose a game if I lose, which I guess happens sometimes. Uh, when I lose, it tells me where I went wrong in the game, and then the next time I just don't make that mistake anymore. And you can actually tell when you're playing online who you're playing against based on like, are they paying for the review package where they get the review thing for $3 a month? And it's a huge disadvantage if you don't have that, because you see them making obvious mistakes and then you just crush them because you exploit that one weakness and that's it, and then they lose. And I think this is actually, there was the butt plug scandal as well in chess. Now we're talking about chess a lot, but the butt plug scandal was this thing where Magnus Carlsen lost to this kind of nobody who'd just been playing online a lot. And it was like actually a question, like, is this guy cheating, or is he just like a savant for pattern recognition and has played against like the machines so long that he's seeing moves that most people wouldn't see? And it became this whole scandal. And it's actually like a rampant thing online. It's like there's actually a lot of cheating in online chess, but there's also like a lot of people who are just learning really fast and accelerate a lot faster. Anyways, I think that's relevant to vibe coding, because I think that's kind of what's going to happen now is once we're playing with the machines, people are going to start accelerating really fast, and it's going to be like the people who previously were very skilled are going to have a hard time keeping up. And I say this as a software engineer as well. Like I've been a software engineer for 12 years. And in that time, I've learned a lot of skills, but now I'm accelerating dramatically faster because of this stuff.
Well, yeah, and I think the yeah, I think a lot of that can come from like you get some amount of like extra augmentation data, and then that can inform like a way in which you approach the thing, which in especially in like competitive environments is essentially like you can't leave home without it if everything's competitive. But the thing with if you're in like a collaborative environment such as software engineering, it's sort of a different or like the game changes slightly, or like the game changes from how do I beat this person, from how do we all make sure that we're doing the same thing like together, and that the way that my sort of skill is improving through the use of these like augmentation type tools, like are we still all kind of like in sync enough to keep going together, basically. Because like if I'm, if there's a way that like you construct a code base and you can drive the thing super fast through it, it's like, is there a way for me to like A, follow that, and then B, actually be valuable when working in that? And there are several ways to like work around that, but ideally I think tools like the sort of like insights generator that the chess thing is using, and sort of the side plug, also a thing that we are interested in when it comes to coding tools like these, is like, is there a way to kind of get everybody leveling up at a similar enough rate so that we don't lose each other, basically. And the thought is like, as we get more of these tools in like directly inside Claude Code, because like context management was a thing that I imagine many of us did with mostly just with like MD files maybe, and then like Claude MD sometimes, and a couple other things. But they're going to keep adding more tools, so the question like will continue to remain, like, for the toolkit that I have at my disposal, like what's the best possible way for me to use it, and then like what's the most coherent way for me to use it, and then what's the way that actually fits in my workflow way to use it, and all of those things kind of have to like be aligned with each other, and it gets very difficult like once you kind of move away from that. So I have a couple. As we can see, I have a bunch of links, and we also are about at the halfway point. So I wanted to like, detour, open the floor a little bit for, in case there's any like thoughts anybody in the audience is having about the topic. Feel free to drop in chat and we can read, or feel free to like request to speak and we can bring you up on stage. But in the meantime, to fill the air, I can go through some of my little finds for the week, and I kind of tried to orient around the aforementioned sort of like opening theme of the week. Is like, okay, like Dario turned the software fountain off. What are we gonna do about it? Niston, what's up, buddy? We good timing too. Oh yeah, you want to come up? What's up, man? Let's do it. Let's click the thingy. What's up, man?
Yeah, but
How we doing?
all good. I just saw this. Where you show and tell, but
Absolutely.
I literally have a power supply in my hand. It was like a bunch of RAM failed and
Hell yeah.
stuff. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, go.
Yeah. No, well, yeah, I seem to have gotten several people with the push notifications. I will keep this in mind for for next time. But yeah, it may be of interest to you. I don't know if you probably don't have context, but the general kind of thought for this week is like, okay, Dario has squeezed us on the software fountain. So what are some ways to get around that? I have a few tools on my list that I like to do that. But of course, like Niston or anybody else, if you have thoughts on like stuff that you use to help you do context management or like just save on tokens, then that's kind of definitely something that I know at least I am very interested in. And it looks like the context window management is a tool that they're giving us, which is very handy. But I have a couple others that I enjoy as well. But yeah, Niston, if you've got anything that like jumps to mind about conserving tokens, feel free to jump in when you have thoughts.
So before you could just set the model name with /model opus -4 -2025 09 29, and you could set it to opus 4 instead of opus 4.1, and that did not hit your limits up until this week. So I had something running almost 24/7 on opus 4, not 4.1.
Yeah.
And I would just put it to have a 5 or 10 minutes like pause every hour, and that was enough that it wouldn't hit the limit. So you could just run that loop 24/7. Now they have just completely destroyed that, and I think it's I don't know. I think it's a good thing. We need to start switching to like GLM 4.6 or something.
Right.
That's that's the only one that just like plug and play. I don't have one ready. Actually, maybe I could use the one to beat. It'll just need like 5-10 minutes, but like we could try doing the quad code with the GLM 4.6 proxy. That's the one that works best, where the tool calling actually matches. Quen cannot do the update to deuce, so only GLM works with the proxy, and it works well.
I didn't know about the 4.6 actually. I'm still on 4.5. Did they drop a new one?
Yeah, they dropped a new one. I haven't checked it out either. So yeah, but like again, I don't know. People have different opinions on this. Like Dax says that you should always be compacting stuff. You know, he's
Really?
right. If you're just letting the model vibe something out on its own, if you're giving very limited instructions and you just want to see, or like just convert this thing to Go or convert this thing to TypeScript and just let it do it all on its own, then it's best that don't overload it with context, that it just like does stuff up to like 40K and then it cuts it out. But if but that's not how I do it. Like I spent a lot of time making a huge, like very well organized context file. Just put it in the Claude MD, just the whole, because it's gonna read the entire Claude MD, and I just feed that in. So if you organize it really nicely, that it goes just like a sysadmin book. You're like, here's the system we're on this on. Here are all the commands. Here's all the stuff you need to know. Here's how to solve the usual bugs. Here's an appendix. If you just make it like a sysadmin handbook, or you just look at the Debian sysadmin handbook, and if you make the context like a book, like that, it works really well, and you can make it really long. You can make like 60, 70,000 tokens, and it'll just eat it, and then it works great on that. But if you don't organize the context and it's just like a whole bunch of fucking MCP and a whole bunch of crap that you put in there, that's not gonna be good. Because like they're running them quantized, right? And when you run stuff quantized, it might show fine the benchmarks, but after 64K tokens or after 100,000 tokens, it just kind of tanks.
Yep.
Versus running it in BF16, and it's like you can try this with the 1D. But yeah, those are my tips. Like, if you make the context file really nice, like you're gonna have to do a lot of like and pasting. You're not gonna have to write it all, but
Well, I mean, it
then-
depends. I have to
yeah.
grab Manuel one of these weeks because he has a really good let's make a book kind of workflow that I sort of stolen from him. But
No,
yeah,
it's-
in
I-
principle.
I talk to him on the streams. He steals my shit all the time.
That's what we're here for, man. Is to steal shit from each other.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. It's
Yeah,
good.
no, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm certainly interested in. I also got to check the price on this little GLM Cody thing. I haven't really found a super great at least for like my sort of sub-agent token budgeting like technique. I find that like with I've got Cursor Agent, I've got GPT-5. I have enough like subscriptions where I can line them up such that I usually have reasonably performant models for things that reasonably performant models are good for. I too was doing the secretly let's use Opus 4 instead of 4.1. Partially because they had that giant outage thing, which I'll pull that up here. Anthropic outage.
They were not. That was a bug. They were not counting that on the quotas at all. Whereas I tried today. I switched today back to the code whatever the npm package. Like I just rolled back the npm package. I switched back to the old one I was using, and then I was checking the quota page. It was going up in real time, even with Opus 4. Like I used it for like an hour. It just went up like 3-4% of the entire week budget. I watched it go from 80, 81, 82 to 85 in like an hour of
Really
just
appreciate
regular
your
use.
commitment
Yeah.
to. I really appreciate your commitment to finding the hole in the armor. You actually went back to an old version of the CLI just to see if there was a bug there. That's fantastic. In this experience, you've tried a bunch of different Claude models. Obviously, you still use Opus for planning mostly. That's what we were talking about before. I've been like deep in using Opus to plan and 4.5 to implement, and I'm finding that like really works.
It depends for what. I'm doing a lot of Linux stuff, and if you're gonna do a UI in C, you're gonna just want Opus 4.1. It's just not gonna come out great otherwise. It is web stuff.
Done? Like I didn't think C was for that.
When you're scoping everything, though, you can't get to. I admittedly am mostly in Go and TypeScript, and in both of those, if I plan efficiently, then like the plan is good enough that Sonnet 5 or Sonnet 4.5 can actually get it done, which is pretty cool.
Well, if you know what you're doing, and you have all your rules up, and maybe you have a cron job that just deletes files, or however you try to do slop janitor duty.
The new slop janitor, the new software engineer.
Yeah, you're a slop janitor. Like, that's your job, bro. Like it's my job every day.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah. But if you were, I did what they were saying today on the AMP podcast thing with the RSIM, and I set up the agent to just run in a loop overnight, and I set up a scrap folder, and I set up a cron job that would just delete anything extra from the node modules and anything extra from the app, but it would let it do stuff in the scrap folder, and I'm just gonna run it overnight, so I don't care what happens. Eventually, it'll like get it right. When I woke up, it had interlinked like main.tsx and stuff with like 30 fucking things in the scrap folder. It had
Amazing.
like it had linked back to like 30 different fucking versions in the scrap folder. So if you kind of have it down in your oops or however you're doing it, then just use that. But I'm finding I really need to supervise 4.5 to get stuff. Like I'm okay with it, just like today, as long as like I'm keeping an eye on it. But I can't let that thing loose. It's just gonna make a mess. It's
Yeah, I
something
didn't.
really.
My success has only come from getting Opus to monitor it very closely. So I get Opus to manage the plan and then watch Sonnet do things, and it seems to work pretty well. But
You know,
as you were speaking, you reminded me of this movie. Have you ever heard of the movie The Blob?
yes, personally.
Uh,
Yeah, it came out we watched it on a VHF when I was a kid. It's that old. I think it's from like the 70s or 80s. It's about this meteor that crashes, and there's this thing that comes out of the meteor, and everybody who touches it gets sucked into it. And the thing just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it's called the Blob. And just the Blob eats everything, and then the town dies. And like every single character in the whole movie dies. And I think I watched this when I was like 5 or 6 years old. That's what this reminds me of as you're talking about this this kind of experience of Sonic blobbing everything back together, even when it decides that it's like gone and it's not useful code anymore. It just keeps trying to reuse everything. It really seems like a context management issue, right? Like there's really no other way to put it. It's just at the end of the day, if you can tell it not to read those files, it shouldn't do it. Or does it still actually do that when you tell it not to?
Well,
Yeah.
yes, sir. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, no. At least in my experience, it's the Claude's instincts to go read things it doesn't or shouldn't be reading right now is legendary. So whenever I possibly have the opportunity, I try to sort of restrict. I try to do. I think the sort of advice that they give here on the on AMP podcast. I haven't listened to it yet, but Perplexity says like scrap folder, where it's like, hey, if this is not ready for a thing that models should be looking at right now, yeah, Baco just nail on the head. Where it's like, unless it's directly relevant to what it's doing right now, keep it out of the window. So I have like a fairly sophisticated kind of quote unquote scrap folder setup where I have like some I have some stuff that I will push to all the way to like main or dev that is like sort of like shared documents for like what I'm doing and like updates to agents.md that are specific to that repo and that I want to share with the team. I have like I have the canonical, specs and planned specs, and then I have I have like journals where I'm like, hey, or a lot of one of my most frequent times of using the journal, dynamically changing agents ND, huh? Yeah, one of my most frequent uses for the journal is like if Claude starts misbehaving, I just tell him like, hey, you're done for the day. I want you to journal about what you did. And sometimes he will be very apologetic and talk about his feelings, which is good because it's actually in my Claude MD to do that, just because it's helpful to read for things, especially it's helpful for me to inform where I think slop may appear if Claude expresses in his daily, this run and then I killed you because you just started like running around making extra wrapper factories for no reason. He will often clue me in on his level of uncertainty when he is journaling about how he feels. So if I'm finding that he like around a certain topic he's sort of like expressing anxiety, that can be a good clue for me that like, oh, when it's doing this, it's probably like producing several low likelihood tokens, so I should probably keep a closer eye kind of on what's going on. So I guess that's my version of the scrap folder. But Baco, I'm curious on your like dynamic do you just manually do the dynamic changing to agents MD, or do you do you have like a? I know because I know Erasmus was doing some of the script orchestration, and I presume it used some stuff.
Erasmus 1 is what I used to do it, which is up a repo that people can look at. I'll post it.
Yeah.
It basically just will. I give it like 3 documents. One's like architecture, and then one is like planning, and then I can't remember what the last one is. I haven't used that library in a while. But I basically
in the file system. We use it generally via a .claude folder, and then markdown files in the .claude folder, and then some like JSONs and I think a YAML or 2 like lying around for auth and stuff. But in terms of active configuration of Claude code, it's all MD.
Yeah. So there'll be a .claude in your root folder in your Docker container, and you should be able to edit the markdown files in there.
Yep.
You want to make sure that you have that set up so that when the Docker container gets built and launches, that it has that already set into it, because if you manually do it afterwards and then relaunch the container, it'll be empty.
True. Solid point.
Get your containers down, boys. I've been running my own infra from 2 places, like actually doing it for a production app, and it's just been hell, man. Like one of the ISPs goes out, the power outage in the area, the laptop I've left as the backup, it's like didn't connect for some reason. It's just like random crap always happens. It's pretty.
I know pain.
There's a reason why all the DevOps guys are grumpy, and only part of it is because they have to deal with software engineers. Right?
But all the alpha is in the Cloud Docs. You have everything there.
Unironically,
I just found
such good advice. Yes, the Claude Docs and the Claude Code changelog.md in the Claude Code repo is also a very good source of alpha. I have like a Sunday ritual of going to the Claude docs and asking if there were any recent changes to them, and then checking changelog.md, because there almost always are, and it's almost always something that's like poorly documented but highly relevant. I remember that was how I found the Claude Code maintain project directory environment variable, which if you're not using, you should set it to 1, and then he won't like run around your file system anymore. He'll just stay where you put him, which is quite nice.
Oh, just one more thing. Be careful with what passwords and stuff you have, because I haven't posted this publicly, but it is really easy to rip-grep your .claude folder, and they've tried to mitigate this by just starting the file names with a minus. And it's like you can't really CD to something that starts with a minus because your bash shell thinks it's an argument. But in fish shell, you can just wrap it in quotes, and you can CD, and you can see your whole history. Everything is in JSON files. And if you rip-grep that, if you do rip-grep for any passwords and stuff, you're going to see when you use your pseudo password, when you use Stripe, when you use everything.
Oh, like
it's
like if you actually like type the pseudo password in plain text during a Claude Code conversation, it ends up in that rollout JSON type beat.
Any NPM package can just take that, dude. It's pretty bad.
Fuck, man. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, like start putting your shit in containers.
Well, yeah. More importantly, like I don't know. It's like I wish they would just like by default encrypt those rollouts, because like they are the arguably like in my humble opinion the like one of the scarce resources in the industry that will remain for at least a little while is high quality rollouts of people using Claude Code that presumably Dario, Sam, everyone else who has one of these things is going to use for building RL gems to, hey, if your Claude Code trajectory today was good, we have some validation set and we're gonna like just auto, start making gems of that, and then you get this sort of compounding infinite loop of this, improving software agents, but they're all stuck behind the API, and apparently they have all our pseudo keys in them too, which is fantastic. It'd be really nice if they would.
here's the thing: if your history is good there, you
if you're able to like parse out because the problem, you know, if you dump the whole like JSON in, or like you're just grabbing through the whole thing,
you just rip grab. Dude.
yeah,
It's
I guess
so
if,
fascinating.
yeah, if
It's
it only pulls a
crazy.
little bit, yeah. No, that's
It's
fair.
scary. Like you do that, and it's like, whoa, like this is everything. Yeah, like my
Well, yeah,
laptop I connected to once.
Yeah, it's got more data in it than just because we were kind of
Oh
going
man,
through
that
it
makes
with
it's such a wealth of resources for hackers. Holy fuck.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
start just firing up containers for every job. Just keep one container for
Well, I
that
already have a dev
because
container built
it's
for doing it. I just
yeah,
am lazy.
good.
Yeah, no, dev containers I think
Good.
definitely is something I'm gonna start using more often because that's super valid. Well, yeah, we are just about at wrap time, so I guess I will open the floor for anybody that wants to hop on stage or anybody that is on stage. If you have any like sort of closing thoughts for the day on, I guess we have once again meandered off the topic, but don't worry, I'm backlogging them, so I will have topics for next week, and I'll save my little links of tricks. But I guess to kick it off, my thought being between being irresponsible with the rollout data and like potentially shutting off the software fountain, like I don't want to code without these things. It's less fun, it's slow. Like I ship just as many bugs as Claude does if I were typing 1,000 tokens a minute or whatever. But I also I think the having to rely on one provider is not a good situation, especially a provider that's like currently behaving in the way this provider is behaving, which it's not an easy problem for them to solve. Everybody in the world wants to have very good software generation machines and wants to use them all the time. But I think having viable alternatives is not something that I see used, and I think it's important for those alternatives to either be to be like just as good, if not better, or more specialized, and also like more privacy oriented, or like actually paying attention to the things that it seems like at the very least like Anthropic seems to be ignoring for now. Is kind of where I'm at on things. But yeah, anybody else? What's your takeaways for today?
My first instinct when I used Cursor and it was really good at like self-propagating stuff was I want this to run forever on my machine, but not my machine. So I got another laptop out, and that's the one I use for like crazy stuff. And I think I was kind of like, that's been my posture this whole time. The one thing that we've approached this with is that I think everything that we build right now should be built as though the agent will be swapped out in the future, because someone's going to either jack up the prices or something,
Even your like system prompts and like the way that you're managing your model, you should be building so it's like model agnostic.
Ooh, yeah,
that's the best
topic. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah. And at least, even if it's not perfectly model agnostic, it has to be organized in such a way that it's like context managed, so that you can pass it off to another agent without it just going to shit. Because when you bring in a new agent to work on something, it's embarrassingly bad. Even the difference between Claude on Cursor. Well, even the difference between Claude on Cursor versus Claude code in the same folder, like in the same repo, is just pathetic, right? Like Cursor and Claude code see completely different things in the same repo. That one really bothered me actually for a bit, and then I realized Claude code's just better, so I gave up on Cursor. But here we are. Hopefully I don't have to throw out all my Claude.mds though. That would be annoying.
Absolutely. Share this with our dev team. Heck yeah, bring your dev team, dude, and let's come on and talk shop next week or one of these weeks, whatever. Super glad. I'm glad that this seems to be valuable so far. Yeah. Yeah, Baco, do you have like a general thought from this week, or you mostly?
I came in late. I have no idea what we're talking about.
Perfect. I love it. What about you, Niston, who came in even later? Any major thoughts so far?
This stuff is pretty hard, honestly. If you want to do automated workloads and stuff, it gets pretty hard. I don't think like we're kind of just telling people you can just vibe it out, but once you got to set up containers, have actual customers, have some kind of uptime, maybe have GPUs and host the API, the complexity just starts to get pretty rough. So I would just say the biggest thing is like just get your work environment in order and make sure you can just like iterate really quickly on that. That's the main thing. But I'm going to finally just like try and move to GLM 4.5.
Yeah,
I tell everybody else to go open source, but I still use Opus because it just codes better at the end of the day. But now that they completely went full communist on the quotas, I think I'm gonna actually just start using GLM.
No, I'm right there with you. I also wanna, and maybe I'm gonna see if I can grab Dax to maybe come on and like show us around a little bit and talk about how he did it. But Open Code has this thing called Zen where they're providing like some amount of models, and I know the kind of one of the benefits of running the model through Zen as opposed to like OpenRouter or something is that they have done the same thing as like Dario and Sam, where they have structured their inference stack around fitting into like the agent CLI chassis. Because I find often like if I try to put GLM or something into Claude code, like it doesn't really know how to use the tools and breaks and is really slow. Whereas the approach that they've taken over there is like, okay, for these models that we are going to serve, we're going to make sure all of them are very good at using this harness, which I think is super, super interesting in terms of how they might do that. And yeah, so I'm going to see if I can grab him in an upcoming week to maybe go run that down. I think it's very interesting. And I suppose with that, we can wrap it up there. I will say thank you everybody for coming by and being highly participatory. It's super dope. I think I have another one of these over in the latent space on Friday, but it seems like there's always more to talk about. So yeah, I appreciate all of y'all showing up and
we can have an after room or something that's not recorded.
Yeah. I can cut the recording and we can just hop over to the lounge and chill for a little bit. I'm down. I got a little bit of time to kill. Cool. Well, let me cut the recording and then close it out on the. I think I know how to end these events, right?
There we go.
There we go.
Here, I got a thing for anybody who wants to use a GPU container that. Oops, what the hell's that? GIF? Oh, whatever. That's a dev container that'll runs the NVIDIA container runtime, so you can run your GPU processes on it, and it will load in your. It also has like a VS Code instance that you can log in remotely through a browser.
Nice.
So if anybody needs that, feel free.
Hell yeah. No, it's super good. Start that. Yeah, also, let's see. Did I cut the stream already? Oh, no, I didn't cut the stream yet. Any last minute plugs of anything anybody wants to do, since, yes, that it occurs to me that that's a good thing to open things up for.
We have an API coming from Tribe that will allow you to analyze all of your Claude codecs and cursor logs, which might be helpful to people.
Indeed.
Also, if you feel like donating them to an effort to train some open source models, maybe we'll have some anti-daario tech.
Indeed, this is the hope. I think that those rollouts have a lot of juice in them, and I want to make sure that people can use it, and that it's not just Daario that gets to leave it completely unsecure and train his own models on it. I think that's something that I'm looking forward to helping solve. Well, yeah, going once, going twice on any last minute plugs. You got anything, Niston?
Ian Lantos are gonna just because GitHub GG is not really making any money. We're just gonna make it a Claude plugin, like a tool to just use for the context summary stuff. I had it before. Use open source models to do the context summarization, but it's just like you just change any GitHub repo to from .com to .gg, and you get the one click copy. But I'm just gonna do it as a /gg tool in Claude, because that's where almost everyone's going to actually use it.
Right.
And
that's really cool.
Yeah, so we're just going to put that the summarization code base in that, the kind of be done with it. I might be going on to do manufacturing stuff very, very, very soon if the check's clear. And yeah, there's some more stuff coming on. I'll also be pushing a medical open source data set that I'll see. Oh, and they were offering, there was one crypto thing, Lilium or something. If you have a good project, they'll give you a node of the B200s, like the best ones for.
Who's this? I want that.
week.
Yeah. Who's this again?
I like
Liam-
compute.
Liam.io. You got to look them up on Twitter because he posted that. I pasted the URL here, but they give a whole bunch of people I know B200s for about a week. I didn't even take it because I just did so much crap to do. But
Only for a week,
oh,
man.
yeah.
Come on.
Oh yeah, okay, I can dig it. Cool. Yeah, so they've got like a startup program or something like that. It's worth checking out.